right. We are live today. I am so excited to bring you a special guest on this live. And today we are going to talk about 5 things that surprised us when we moved abroad. Now, I'm in France, Christopher is in Spain, and we had our fair share of surprises. And we thought this would be a fun live to bring you. And if you are joining live, thank you. Be sure to, if you can hear me and you are joining live, please type in the chat where you are joining from. Igami, greetings. Yes, hello. So welcome, welcome. Today we're going to talk about 5 things, each of us, that surprised us when we made our move to Spain and France, respectively. And before we jump in, I'd like to introduce myself, and then I'll have Christopher introduce himself. You're going to love him. He's a great guy and full of fun and information, lots of good information as well. So I am Patricia Brooks, and I moved to the south of France just about 6 years ago. And I have created a program called the Carefree Expat Incubator Program, where I help single women who were just like me, who were really wanting to move abroad, longing to move abroad, but felt stuck to make it happen on their own. And I help them to move through whatever is keeping them stuck and in procrastination mode. And I get them to a place where they're feeling more confident. They believe that it's possible for them, that they feel more empowered to do what is necessary so that they can finally stop surviving in a country that no longer serves them, and they can start living and thriving in one that does. And so that is who I am. That is what I do. And my special guest is Dr. Christopher Wells, and I am going to let him introduce himself and what he does.
Well, Patricia, first, I'm thrilled to be here, and I am in a very similar way. I've been an expat twice. The first time was in 2013 when I came to Spain to live, and I lived here for about 2 years in Valencia. And then when I had to go back to the U.S., but when I got back to the U.S., I realized that there was a lot that I could teach others from my own experience. And so I got involved in a meetup group called Future Expats, and that allowed me to connect with people. The group now has 1,400 and something people in it. And
Wow.
we have monthly meetups, and it's a great place to share information, but it also is an opportunity for people who are ready to make that next step. Just like Patricia, you know so well, those people who are ready to make the next step can learn from the experience of other people. So currently I've been living here in Valencia again since October 2021, so a little over 2 years, and it has been a wonderful ride so far.
Yeah. And so why Spain? Why did you choose Spain?
That's a great question. I don't know how often this happens to people, but I was here for a residency in Madrid, and while we were here for the residency, some of my classmates and I decided that we were going to go to Barcelona and then come to Valencia before we went back to Madrid to fly home. And I'll tell you, the experience of stepping off the train in Valencia and looking around, I just fell in love with it. I was just charmed. And in my head, always before when I'd gone somewhere that I really liked, I always got oh, that's nice, but you're never going to do that. Well, I have to say, I never got that sensation. So 3 years later, I changed my life and moved here in 2013. So it's been an adventure, and Spain has rewarded me with a much calmer kind of life and a much more engaged life, because and we'll talk about this later, because I'm awake, like wide awake most of the time.
Yeah. So it was a feeling, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was a feeling, and I can relate to that. For me, when I found Perpignan, that was a feeling. It was like, oh, I think I found my new home. But, so definitely I think feelings really matter.
I mean,
So,
you get charmed by something, and it could be something super simple. Like there's a little ice cream shop right there. Isn't that charming? Oh, you know what? I could live in this neighborhood, and
yeah.
suddenly there you are.
Yeah, yeah. So thank you, Christopher, for introducing yourself and sharing that with me. We've got a couple more people who have joined live. If you are just joining today, we are going to talk about the 5 things that surprised us when we moved to Spain and France, respectively. And if you have questions, please feel free to type them in the chat and we will do our best to answer them. All right. So I'm going to start off and I'm going to allow Christopher to share his the things that surprised him most. So what was the what was the thing that surprised you most when you moved to Spain?
Well, so having moved here to Spain twice, I'm really going to focus on this last 2 years
Yeah.
because I felt like I showed up with all these extra skills and I could speak some Spanish and I felt like I knew the area. It all added up to an absolute zero. So I still had a huge learning curve to go through. So the first thing that I have to say was both a culture shock in a good and a bad way is that a good attitude goes a long way. And I have a short story with that. When we first arrived here, one of the first things you need to do is like get mobile phone service. And because of a variety of different paperwork things, and Spain is really big on paperwork, um, it ended up that I had to go back to the phone store multiple times to get our SIM cards, to get connected, all of those things. And it took a lot of effort to do that over and over again because I know that I was extra work for those people in that phone store and they were having to listen to my bad Spanish and trying to build those bridges between people that they really weren't interested in helping me. So what I had to do is I had to step back and say, you know what? This is bureaucracy. I know how to deal with bureaucracy. It's with patience. And so I'm just going to be patient. I'm going to change my attitude. I'm not going to look at this as like this huge, horrible experience. I'm going to look at it as a learning experience. And I changed my attitude so that it was now more manageable. And I knew now a little bit more about how to expect and how to prepare myself for some of the experiences that I was going to go through. So good
Yeah.
attitude goes really a long way.
Yes, it's huge, and I think it's funny that you said, "Oh, I've lived here before," right? This I've got this, right?
No, no,
Yeah, yep.
no, big fat
That was the
no.
surprise, right? And I can relate. I studied French for a couple years before moving to France, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm pretty good with the language. Yeah, when you come and you can't think clearly because everything is so overwhelming, yeah, that was a big surprise for me too. That I was worse in my language skills than than I thought. In my head, in the United States, I was really good, but getting here and having to use it is a different thing. So definitely can relate to that.
Yeah, and I feel like that kind of it's exhausting. Let me put it that way. It really I've never been so tired in all my life when I have been in immersive language environments, and it's also been very rewarding, right? So,
Mhm.
so that Patricia, what you just said led me to my second big thing, which
Mhm.
was you're going to get it wrong repeatedly,
Yeah.
and nothing you can do is going to change that. So the times that I've had conversations with friends, I've had just blatant misconceptions and miscommunications. Um, and all of those things, what I have to do is I have to first apologize for not being as good a speaker as I want to be, but learning from those experiences. So I feel like for me, the fact that I know that I'm going to get it wrong, um, By the way, I'm a career educator, and I know what my students feel like because I too am a student and have been a student for many years. And the biggest learning opportunity I've had has been here. The only way that you can build on the skills that you have is to try them out and figure out what works and what doesn't work. But figuring out what doesn't work may be painful, but it's very rewarding. You can't take yourself too seriously.
So the second thing that surprised you was that you felt like you were that no matter how much you thought you knew, you were going to get it wrong, and that you had to kind of learn to be okay with being wrong.
I had to make peace with making mistakes.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm the kind of person who wants to get it right the first time.
yeah.
I want to do my homework. I want to get my assignments done early, all of those things. But it, it I had to set some of those expectations aside.
And
And
so
I feel
how were
like
you,
that made it richer for me.
yeah, and so how were you able to do that? Because I'm a recovering perfectionist as well, right? And so, yeah, it makes sense. You need to get over that. But were there any tools that you used that helped you move through
So
that?
there are lots of chat groups and different social groups, and we'll talk a little bit about those in a little bit. But lots of ways that you can interact with other people who are in similar situations to you. Sometimes groups like this are a great way to do that. But learning from others. Oh, you know what? That's not that's not just me. Going to the doctor is its own special and unique joy in any other country other than the one you're used to. And so when I hear that my Spanish friends have had some of the same challenges going to the doctor that I have, then I have to realize, oh, wait, me getting all ramped up about that really didn't matter because that is just the way it works here.
Mhm.
So more than anything else, it comes from building my reference points
Mhm.
where for me, I mean, like this is a study of just like one person, but when I talk to other people, I realize we've all had a very similar experience. So I can't take those experiences as seriously because it's just the way life is here.
Yeah.
It's just different.
Yeah. So yeah, so I like that learning, that oh, I'm not alone in this, right? Yeah, I make mistakes because of this, or I'm experiencing this because it's the way it is, and it's not just me. And so that kind of evens the playing field and allows you to say, yeah, all right, mistakes, bring them.
And that's exactly it, because I know that when I'm making mistakes, I'm in a process where I'm learning.
Yeah.
And my phone has been my biggest guide. So somebody says something or I say something and I do it wrong, or they use vocabulary that I don't know, I'll ask them to repeat the word, and then I look it up, and then I just save a photo snapshot of my screen. And so later on, I go back and I put those into my study tools.
Oh, that's a good idea. I
It
gotta do
doesn't
that.
work. It doesn't work for cultural things, and I I can tell you very quickly, a year ago, we spent New Year's Eve with some friends, and it was like during the day we were having lunch. And one of the things that they wanted to ask us as Americans, because there were two of us there, what is the song of your village or your town? What local folk songs do you have? And Nathan and I looked at each other, and it was like, we got nothing. And they thought that we were being obstinate or difficult, but that's very much part of the culture here. Well, I can't blame myself for not knowing
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But I made notes so that I remembered that experience, and maybe I could learn from that.
Yeah,
So
yeah, and I mean, it'll come. I mean, it'll start to be a part of who you are, but it takes time,
it
definitely.
does take
Yeah,
time. And
yeah.
that kind of goes along with my next point, which is you can't operate on autopilot for
Ah.
a while. you you are so ultimately awake, because when you go out onto the street, you're seeing words you've never seen before, and you are having interactions with people that you've never had before. When you go to the grocery store, in some of the grocery stores, they'll ask you if you want to buy one of the promotional items that's right there by the register, because that is a very much a thing here. And so you're sitting there thinking, okay, I need to get the correct change, or I need to pay or whatever. And they're like, do you want this bar of chocolate? And it's always very fast kind of communications. And you have to be ready for that when it comes. And it's okay to say, I don't know, but you have to be awake to experience it. You can't just walk down the street without being awake and aware of the difference that you're experiencing in your daily life now.
Yeah, and I think it's a good point. Autopilot. Like if you're living in the country you're living in and you have always lived there, you don't even know that you're on autopilot. But when you're in line at a grocery store and there's different money and you have just arrived and you're looking at the little coins, you're
Yeah.
like,
Is
what
this
is
10,
that?
2, 5? Yeah. Yeah.
So,
And the same thing goes with the products that you're buying or you're
well,
looking
yes.
for. If you're looking for something, one of the things that I did is I became friends with Amazon.es, the Spanish version of Amazon, so that I got basic home goods vocabulary, so that when I went into a store, I knew what to call stuff.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's just my own little study tip. But it was exhausting being in that wide awake kind of environment, but it ultimately it changed my brain in very positive ways. So I know I'm more flexible now.
Yeah. So now would you say that you are able to do some things on autopilot now? You said you've been there for 2 years now.
For sure. And
Yeah.
there are plenty of things that I can do on autopilot. I can go to a restaurant. I can do a lot of those things, even go out with friends and be
Mhm.
on autopilot quite a bit, because I'm not learning the lay of the land. I'm not learning the
Yeah.
language. I'm not learning all the cultural mores that go along with that in very
Mhm.
subtle ways. So
Mhm.
now, yeah, there is a little bit more time for autopilot. And I know I still have so much vocabulary to learn, but
Yeah.
I'm thrilled about learning it because it's going to place me better.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I will say that for me, the autopilot thing, yes, I can do so many more things on autopilot, but still, there's some things that I'm not able to do. I went to a Thanksgiving dinner in Paris, and there were 7 of us at a table in a restaurant. And I think my French is really pretty good. I think it's I can understand fast spoken French now. I can really explain myself very well. But that experience was overwhelming to me because it was late. I was tired. It was noisy. They were talking about whatever, anything, right? It's just random. There's no point of reference, right? So you're like, oh, did I hear that word right? And so that was exhausting 6 years in with a good level of French. And so I think this autopilot thing depends on the circumstances and situation that you're into. If you're tired, it all matters.
Well, and that's the concept of fluency too. And fluency is contextually based. So I can be
Mhm.
fluent when I'm talking about cooking a meal, but I may
Yes.
not be fluent when I'm talking about politics, and I
Yeah.
may not be fluent when I'm talking about construction in a home.
Right.
But
Or to your doctor, right? It's
yeah,
medical stuff, right?
I
Yeah.
will tell you that I used to study vocabulary before I went into the doctor and the
Mhm.
dentist, because I don't know those words. Those are never
Mhm.
in any sort of learning course, but very handy to have. So I did do a lot of studying.
Yeah.
Another place that I feel has been both a surprise and positive kind of interaction is I've learned how to make friends again. Making
Mm.
friends is a critical skill. Here in Spain, and I don't know about other places in Europe, here in Spain, people are friends from kindergarten to elementary school to middle school to high school to college, and those are their friends. And they have a pretty full cast of characters in their friend group already. And so finding space for this lone American fella to be your friend and do things socially, that takes a lot more work than you might think.
Mhm.
I found that there are social groups. Internations.org is one of them.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's fantastic. Intercambios. If you haven't looked at the meetups in your personal destination, meetups are a great way to meet people. When I lived here before, I was involved in Yelp. Yelp was here in Europe, and so we would have Yelp events. And so I had English speaking social groups and Spanish speaking social groups. And some of those people are my friends even today. So,
Mhm.
it was a very rewarding experience. But if you're a new friend, then it's going to take more than you think to build that friendship. It means you're going to have to pursue someone. Hey, can we meet for coffee? Hey, would you like to go out to dinner? And if you're going for somebody local, be prepared that they are trying to be the best friend they know how, even though they haven't known you for 20 years.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so you've learned how to make friends again. So was was it surprising? Was it do you feel it's hard to make friends again? What was there something surprising around this idea of making friends again?
It goes back to you're going to get it wrong repeatedly. I mean,
You're gonna get it
it's
wrong.
being vulnerable, right?
Yeah.
And you had to be vulnerable again. So to that point, I have some friends on Mondays, like tonight. We're going to have this intercambio. We do every Monday, and
An
what we
intercambio for those who don't know.
what we do is an intercambio is where you share language. So what we're going to do and what we do on Monday nights is we get together at a bar and we talk Spanish for part of the time and we talk English for part of the time because the one of the guys wants to learn English, or speak English better. So we have this lovely conversation. We get to know each other better. The reason for all that is that I had to be really vulnerable with them and say, look, I need to continue to grow my Spanish skills. Would you be willing to help me? And
Mhm.
they responded so positively.
Mhm.
It's quite rewarding, and they
Mhm.
are new friends, right?
Mhm.
They aren't friends I've had for dozens of years.
Mhm.
They're new friends, and they're letting me into their circle. So it's not impossible, but it does take work.
Right, and it takes being vulnerable, and it takes what I heard. This is something I've spoken about in past videos. Is you need to be okay with asking for help.
You have to. You have to. And I think that kind of brings me to my last point, and that is the rewards of doing something like this are rich. They really are.
Mhm.
Um, you are in a new environment. You have a clean slate. You have the opportunity to decide what your new routine and habit is going to be. You can find different joy in meeting with other people. You can share your experiences with people who want to know what it's like to be an American. And you can learn from them what it's like to be a person from that other culture. I have to say that I have become, in my humble opinion, I've become a better person because I'm more accepting of other people, and I have learned so much from other people, and I want to learn more.
Yeah,
That has not stopped. So those are my 5 points, and
yeah,
I really, my goal with my website and with the meetup that I run, and we'll talk about that later, is to encourage other people to do exactly the same thing.
yeah, yeah. Those are great points. France Bound has said lots of good points. So thank you for sharing all of that, Christopher. For those of you who are watching live, if you have questions, please type them in the chat and we will get to them. All right. So I guess since you've done your five, I guess it's my turn.
Please, I can't wait to hear them.
Yeah, well, let me get my list so I don't forget any of them. I think one of the things that I speak to a lot of people who want to move abroad, and one of the things that they say, one of the reasons they say they want to move abroad is that they want to experience a slower pace of life. They want to have the cafe culture and be more leisurely. And the thing that surprised me, that necessarily wasn't necessarily one of my top thing reasons for wanting to move to France, but I did not. It was not something that I wasn't looking forward to. But what surprised me about that was I got here and it was hard to slow down, right? It was hard to slow down. And so that slower pace of life is something that a lot of us want. But if we are used to being in a go, go, do, earn mentality, you get to some place where things are slower. Like, for example, here, some of the shops close at lunchtime. So people can go home and have lunch with their children or with their families. And that's a lovely thing. But, if I'm wanting to go to the post office and it's quarter to 12, I have to kind of say, oh, yeah, you're not going to make it. You got to wait till 1:30 or 2. And that has taken me some time to get used to and appreciate. So, but now I think I'm there. I mean, I still will sometimes say, oh, yeah, I got to wait, but I'm less irritated about it.
Do you think that that's the price of having the cafe culture? That people want this slowdown in their life to be able to relax and enjoy, savor a different level of being present in their environment. But the price for that is that the rest of the world has a different rhythm that you're being part of.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's the price that you pay. I think another thing that shows this is in the United States, people are working overnight to stock shelves. Here in the grocery stores, you're going in the middle of the day and you're trying to go around somebody who's stocking shelves to get the thing that it's all, and they're always in your way, right? It's like
They have mad skills in that department. Yeah.
so it's those sorts of things. But then they get to go home and have dinner with their family and enjoy a nice, sleep at night. And, so that is the trade-off. It definitely is the trade-off. And I think it's be careful what you wish for, right?
Yeah. Be aware that nothing comes for free. And if you're going to change yourself, then expect other things to change about your environment.
Yeah, yeah. Nothing comes for free. I like that. Nothing comes for free. So that was the first thing that kind of shocked me, and that it took me so long to kind of adjust. The second thing is around medical care and the health insurance system here. When I first got here, although I was eligible to get the carte vitale, which is the health insurance card here, I wasn't aware of that, right? So I was paying out of pocket, which was quite affordable. Prescriptions were affordable, doctor visits were affordable, even having blood drawn, that was affordable as well. But every time I'd go into a pharmacy and get my prescriptions, they'd say they'd ask me for my carte vitale, and I said I don't have one, and they would look at me like, oh, well, what's wrong with you? Why don't you have this thing? And it's like I just don't. And so that surprised me that the health insurance is something that even if you are on a resident visa, you are eligible for. Now, if you're on a visitor visa, you will have to pay into the system. I'm on an entrepreneur visa, a profession liberale visa, and so they take it out of what I'm earning. But it's nice to be, it's a right. Whereas in the States, it's not. And so that really surprised me. So that's on the plus side of healthcare and health insurance here. What surprised me quite recently, because I had, when I moved to Perpignan, I had my landlord was a doctor and he lived underneath my apartment. So I had a doctor baked right in, but he recently retired. And so what I found on the downside was it was very hard for me to find a good doctor after losing him. And so, and I think maybe that's because I'm in a rural place, maybe in Paris or in bigger cities, it might be easier or better. But for me, that was a struggle. So finding a good doctor now was challenging. And then sometimes the wait times for doctors or specialists. I waited about 9 months to see an allergist recently, and so that was surprising to me. So, so the medical, there's the good side, right? You get healthcare, but then there's the downside, at least in my area, for the wait times or finding good doctors. So that's
Specialists, yeah, specialists are always a challenge.
Yeah. Yeah. I think in the United States too, there can be a challenge there, but I've never had to wait 9 months to see a doctor before.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's my number two. My number three is something that really surprised me. I was here. I was in Perpignan, and I maybe was here three weeks, maybe a month, and it's the middle of the day, and I'm just walking down a street. It's not a small alley; it's just a normal street, and I walk up on this guy who is urinating in public. That surprised me how freely men seem to be able to relieve themselves here.
Here in Spain too. Yep. Yep.
Yeah, I think maybe it might be a European thing. I'm not sure, but it just was something that really caught me off guard. And then I see it everywhere. It's like, what is this? What is this thing? It really bothered me in the beginning, but when I started to recognize that this is just a cultural difference, it's a cultural thing that they do, and people seem to be okay with it, and it's not meant to disrespect me. I was like, okay, just look away, look the other way, and so that was something that really shocked me. But I've been here; it's just normal now. It's normal. Oh yeah. So, along with that is what surprised me, and I think this got worse over time, not better, until recently, was the first couple of times I went to a grocery store, I was in line and people were really close behind me. And I'd move up to get a little bit of space and they'd move up. And so this idea of having a certain distance, having your personal space as sacred doesn't really exist here. And initially I was like, oh, this is something that's new, this different. But over time, that kind of built up and it really caused me to feel a little bit frustrated or annoyed, right? And a couple of months ago, I had this aha moment where I recognized that the reason that bothered me so much was because I have a core value of respecting people, being respected. And I read into this lack of personal space being right up on me and continuing to be right up on me as being disrespectful, right? It's a cultural difference, right? Maybe there's less space here in Europe, so people just are used to just being closer, right? But for me, I read into it, and that made it hard for me, right? I was resisting something that is because I was giving it meaning that it doesn't necessarily have.
I can completely understand with that. And I know with my my American culture, which is neo-Anglican Germanic, frankly, things like being on time, things like let's calm down. It's not that important. And so I like you, physical personal space is very different. Also, here there's a lot of noise. Not every
Yeah.
country is like this, but Spain
Mhm.
is a very noisy place. So if you're sitting at a table outside and you're having coffee and bread or whatever, and the table next to you wants to have a conversation, not only are you hearing their conversation, sometimes they will invite you into their
Yeah,
conversation,
yeah.
or you have the ability to kind of um, kick up, like a topic like I'm sorry, how did that happen, those kinds of things. That's really quite normal. And I have to say that it is the physical closeness of other people, whether it's in apartment buildings or whatever, is very different from what a lot of people are used to in the US.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think noise, you mentioned noise. I think in the south of France, I think we're noisier than in the north. And actually, I took a train trip and from Paris to Perpignan, and at Valence, I think was the train station, that the train started to get, when we were coming south, the train started to get noisier and noisier. And I was like, oh, there is a cultural difference within France around noise. Yeah.
I also often carry earplugs, which
Mhm.
my Spanish friends give me crap about, because, oh, wearing earplugs that's weak. I'm like, yeah, but I'm going to have hearing when I'm older, and all of y'all are going to be on hearing aids, because fireworks are also a big thing here. A big,
Mhm.
so people are standing right in front of fireworks when they're going off, and they have permanent hearing damage. If you want to sell hearing aids, this is the place.
Yeah, I see a lot of hearing aid stores here too, but this isn't. I think the age of the people in this village is older too, so that might be the reason.
Why not both? Yeah.
So personal space. So that was my number four, and then this is something that when I was growing up, and I would go out with my father. He'd take me wherever. We'd pass, black people on the streets, and he'd nod or he'd speak, right? And so that's something that I caught in the United States, right? So that's something that I do. But here in France, if I pass a black person, a French black person, and I nod, I'm not going to get a reciprocal nod. It's not happening. And it was very startling. It was shocking to not get that sense of, oh, I see you, or, I've got you. But I realized that, being black in France or being a black French person is different from being a black American. And the need to recognize or to feel seen, or I don't even know what the word is, by nodding, is not a thing here, right? And so now, if I pass a black person on the street here, I have to catch myself, because it's a force of habit to not do it, so that I don't have that feeling of like, it's almost like a slap in the face not to get it in return. And so was that was shocking to me, that not getting it, and then my reaction to not getting it shocked me. So I think, uh, for matters around race, I think that has been interesting as well. I know my first year or two here, sometimes I would see something as potentially racist, and like maybe somebody cutting in line in front of me, and then the vendor actually helping them and not saying, oh no, she was here first. And I recognized that if I was going to um, have that idea that, oh, this is racist, I'm going to label this racist, and I'm going to get all in a huff about that, then my experience here was not going to be the kind of experience I wanted to have. And so I recognize it's possible that it was racist, but I'm not going to label it racist, and I'm going to maybe go to a different vendor the next time, but not make that my problem, right? And I feel like I have been very well accepted here. I think living in an 8,000 person village is challenging, especially one, that is, very close knit. And then you're coming in and you're a foreigner, and it's kind of touristy here. So some people come for 3 months at a time, and then they go, and, they're kind of occasionally living here. People don't want to invest if they don't want to be vulnerable with you if you're not going to be there for the long term. So since I've been here, for in this village for 5 years now, people know me, I know them, and they're friendly. I don't feel like anything that has been done or that I've experienced has been because I'm a Black American here. So, yeah.
Well, and even that sense of foreigner, in addition to being a Black American, the, I knew that we had made a new friend when the guy who was in charge of, or the guy who owned the coffee shop that we went to for coffee in the morning some days, started giving us grief, like started playing with
Yeah.
us in
Yeah.
banter.
Yeah.
And I knew at that point we had made a significant shift forward in our being part of the community. They recognized us as regulars,
Yes.
and that may be with your situation where somebody
Yeah.
cut in line. It could be that they're friends. It could be
Yeah.
that their families
Yeah.
know each other. It could be,
Anything, right?
and
Yeah.
and you have to believe the
Or
best
it could
of
be
other
that she was
people.
just rude. Right?
And the shopkeeper is like, you know what? It's better if I just deal with the
Yep.
rude,
Yep.
and then I can spend all my time on the person who's polite. Yeah.
Yes.
I've been in that situation as well. So I think that that's good. We do have a couple of questions that came
Okay.
up.
All right.
One is, what's the situation in France trying to find your group? Jesse asked this question: a
Mhm.
friend group that you can get tight with versus like in the US, where you tend to know 100 acquaintances. And followed up with, as an expat, what is the situation in France and Spain finding your tribe, a group of friends who you're tight with? Unless your
Mhm.
family relationships tend to be more acquaintances. So hey, do you want me to answer that first, or you want to?
Go
You
ahead and
want to?
go for it.
Okay. Well, my feeling is I have met some really great people through Meetup and through Internations. It's internations, I think, .org. But Meetups, meetup.com is one of the best ways you can find people who are your kind of people. Here in Valencia, because it's a pretty dynamic city and there are a lot of people here, there are meetups for anything that you can imagine. Do you want to go for a run on Saturday mornings? There's a meetup for that. Do you want to check out the 10 hottest new bars in one night? There's a meetup for that. You want to go hiking on the weekends? There's a meetup for that. So those are great ways to get to know other people. And if you go in there and you say, well, I'd like to join this group, you know what? They're not going to kick you out. You have to be brave enough to jump into that situation and choose to enjoy the experience that you have.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a great point. For me, I think there have been a couple of things that have been at play here. Well, again, let me answer the question about acquaintances versus friends or true friendships. Here in France, they say that once you make a friend here, they'll give you the shirt off their back. They are tried and true. And I have a friend who is like this, who I can ask favors of, and I know he will be there if I ever had an emergency. Um, he said that he lived in the U.S. In Missouri for, I don't know, a year or so, and he said that it was surprising to him that you'd go into a bar or whatever, and you'd meet people and they would act like they were your best friends, and then the next morning they'd like, who are you? But here it's deeper. So once you get in, you're good. Getting in, I think, is challenging, as I spoke about a little bit before, about being in a place where you're new, and it takes some time for people to get used to seeing you. I think going to meetups and doing things that you enjoy doing, and knowing yourself, because I think for me, in the beginning, what I did was I knew that I was going to have to put myself out there, having introvert tendencies, being in a foreign country. So I signed up. In France. There's a website called Unveil, or OVS for short, and it's like a meetup site. And I put myself out there. I did laughter yoga, and I went to some meetups where we would go out for drinks. And it was challenging because those meetups have been up around for a while, and so they had their cliques in them. So that was challenging. But then also there is this element of, when I was first here, I felt like, oh, I want to have friends. I want to meet people. I don't want to be here all by myself. And so I would meet people, and maybe we'd go hiking or we'd go out for drinks together. But I recognized a couple of dates in that, oh, I don't really like that person, right? I was really not in tune with doing things I wanted to do, or being around people who had the kind of energy I wanted to be around. So I think it's definitely a balancing act to, be open, because you don't really know somebody's energy up front, but also recognizing the things that you want to do and who you really want to be around. So for me, I think it's been a slower pace of making friends, but I do have probably 3 or 4 people I call true friends here, and I'm happy with that.
And you should be. Being able to make a friend as a fully formed adult is not the easiest thing in the world.
As you
Um,
spoke about
yeah.
earlier, right?
So I'll also tell you another funny story. When we went with some friends to a bar here, people that knew who I was, not just from when I lived here before, but also more recently, who knew who I was, um, talked, he told somebody else, and it ended up triangulating back to me through several. Oh, so you guys went to that bar the other night. Wait, are you following me? Are you spying on me? But that's just the way here the culture is all about human personal connections.
Yeah.
So for me in Spain, I realized that people here in Spain are friendly, but they may not want to be your friends. So finding those folks who want to be your friends, your tribe,
Yes.
your group, the people who you can build a deeper relationship and build trust with over time is really important. One of the key ingredients of trust is going to be shared expectations. And the only way to know whether or not you're sharing the same expectations about life or about the thing that you're interested in is by spending time with them. So, get out there and do your best to figure out what you might want to do as a social effort.
Yes, I think that's key. Knowing what it is you want to do, the things you want to do, and how you want to interact in that. And I think you said something, shared expectations, but something else that really hit me. What you said is over time,
Over time.
over time,
Yeah,
right?
and so in my doctorate, like I did quite a bit of study about trust and trust development. There is something called quick trust, but those things are like things that happen in operating rooms where you have a doctor
Yeah.
come in and has to run the operating room at a moment's notice. That is not normal life. So it takes time for those other things to grow. Igami, you asked me a question, but Patricia, you should probably answer this as well. Was there anything that shocked or unsettles you now that you live in Spain? And the short answer is yes. There is this need for paperwork and appointments for any official activity. And you can't escape from those. Like, those are the things that allow you to live in the country or renew your visa or your passport or whatever. And the paperwork has been turned up to 11 here in Spain since COVID, and the it's a game. Trying to get appointments is a game. Eventually, for one of my appointments, I have a friend who's a police officer. I had to call Javi up and say, "Look, can you help me?" And sure enough, he called the office that I needed to go to, and he's like, "Okay, I'm going to pick you guys up. We're going to go there, and we'll go after their closing hours, and we'll be the last people that get processed for the day." And so, I had to call in a friend
Yeah.
to make some of this
Ask for
stuff
help.
happen. Yeah, I had to be brave enough to ask for help.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So for me, I think this doesn't have to do administrative matters here can be lengthy and time consuming and challenging, all of that. But I think I had a sense of that would be the case. And I think I've been lucky. I think depending on where you are, what prefecture you're in, some are slower than others. It seems like, knock on wood, Perpignan prefecture seems to be pretty on top of it. For me, I think, and I hope I'm answering the right question. I think the thing that surprised me once I got here and once I've been here for a little bit is how it's really difficult to regulate your environment in your home. All right. So I moved to the south of France because I really don't like the cold. Oh, you see what I'm wearing? It's a
Yeah,
nice day
I'm in
out.
Valencia, Spain. Yeah, I mean,
It's a nice day out. It's pretty mild, but the homes here are built for the heat, right? So there's tile on the floor. And so for me, that was like that was eye-opening because I actually went to Norway a couple of Christmases ago, and I didn't want to go because, well, it was in winter. And I was really surprised at how comfortable the homes were there because they're built to, you know, to control the environment and have it nice and toasty. And when I got back here, I was like, oh yeah, this. So I think that was a shocker for me. It was like, oh, So
That's
that's
a
it
really
for
good
me.
point. I've had a
Yeah.
similar experience when I went on a trip with a bunch of Spaniards to Germany. Same kind of
Mhm.
thing. It was just like,
Yeah.
oh, what? I mean, I'll go out and get pretzels, but then I'm coming back home.
Yeah, I mean, because it was so comfy and so warm and inviting. And of course, if 6 months of the year it's cold, you're going to build homes to to create that kind of comfort. Um,
For sure.
all
For sure.
all right,
Let's
and
see. Um, Another question. What do you each love most about how you've changed or grown since moving abroad? Wow, that's a big question. I feel like I'm not in a lot of ways the same person that I was. So
Mhm.
let me unpack that for a minute. You know those games where kids you put the square peg in the square hole and the triangle peg in the triangle? Well, I used to fit into a square peg and now I'm a circle and I no longer go into the square peg anymore. I feel like I have learned enough about myself that I trust myself more to be in situations where I have no idea what's going on, but I'm
Mm,
now brave enough to say I'm sorry. I don't understand that. I have this whole pattern. Soy estudiante de español. No puedo hablar muy rápido. I'm a student of Spanish. I don't speak very fast. And they'll slow down for just a minute, even for just a minute. But what ends up happening is they bring me into the conversation. It it has been a change for me to have to grow enough to struggle, at least at first, with communication and with connecting with other people.
mhm.
And I feel
Yeah,
like I've done a lot of growth in that area.
yeah, yeah. Uh, Christopher, I second that. I'm not the same person I was 6 years ago. I am a completely different person, able to do things that still scare me maybe a little bit, but I just do it. It's easier to just move through that than having, that hesitation or that thing that holds me back for a long time. No, I step into it and am just more willing to make mistakes. Uh, I think the other thing that I've learned that I am so grateful for is that in learning French, it has taught me that I can learn a new language. I never believed that when I was in high school and college studying French. I didn't believe it. I believed that my brother got all of the language genes. And so I just did enough to skate by. And now that I am fluent in French and tackling Spanish, it just feels it's affirming to have had that experience and know that I am capable of learning new things and getting pretty good at them. So, um,
And as a side note, learning a new language is also one of the things that has been shown to reduce the appearance of Alzheimer's and dementia later in life. Just laying it out there. It's just a good thing to know how to do.
yeah, yeah, and you can communicate, right? Make friends.
Right, right. And order food. I mean, these are the important things, people.
Mhm. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So these are really good questions. Thank you, everybody, for participating. Did we get them all?
There is another one Lamar just asked. What are some great ways to adapt yourself to a new country?
Hmm.
You want to tackle that one first?
Mm, yeah, sure. I think I think awareness is key, right? Because you're going to go into a new culture, and you're not necessarily going to know what you're going to experience, right? You may have some ideas, you may have watched some YouTube videos. Oh yeah, they're like this in France, they're like this in Spain. But when you get there, you're going to experience it in your own way. And recognizing, I think, being able to be aware and recognize when you're feeling resistance to the way things are or being done, that as soon as you can catch that, you can recognize, oh, this is a cultural difference. It is doesn't feel good to me. And so if you can if you can identify, oh yeah, this is rubbing me the wrong way, then you can then drill down later into, well, why does it bother me? Like for me, the guys peeing in the streets or the personal space, for me, initially it was a lack of respect, and respect is a big core value for me, as I said. But once I came around to saying, oh, they're doing that and they're not doing that to piss me off, excuse the expression, right? But it's just a cultural difference, and that has nothing to do with them disrespecting me. Then I was able to say, oh, okay, so you're a little close to me in line. Okay, I'm so much better with that. It's not a something that I dread anymore, going to the grocery store because of that lack of personal space. So I think the awareness of, oh yeah, this is something that I am not used to and is uncomfortable for me. And then looking into, well, what does this signify for me that it probably doesn't signify for the person or the situation that's happening? And then go through it that way.
I have to say, for me, I've always defined adventures as 50% excitement and 50% sheer terror. And I feel like living in a new country is an adventure, more on the terror side when you get here. But over time, it becomes more of this incredible opportunity to see things that you would never have seen or never have experienced otherwise. And I find that incredibly rewarding. So adapting myself to a new country starts with my mindset and knowing myself, and that only gets better over time.
Yeah. Knowing yourself, right? And, yourself changes, right? Yeah.
Totally.
So great, great. Well, this has been, I don't think there are any more questions. I want to thank you so much, Christopher, for joining me today. This has been a blast. Um,
My pleasure. I find these conversations very rewarding.
Yeah, yeah. And so I wanted to, ask you to share a little bit more about what you do with the meetup, what you do, with expats or future expats, how
Sure.
you help them, and how people can get in touch with you if they're interested in joining what you have to offer.
Absolutely. So my website is cleverexpat.com. And I bill myself as the clever expat. Although, cleverness is an expandable term. I've still got a lot of clever yet to learn. But I have a freebie for the folks who attend today. And that is a website. I'll put it in the link. It's cleverexpat.com/courage. And what that is a freebie that you can download, just so you know, when you enter your information, so I can send it to you. It may give you an error trying to resolve that on my website, but I will get it to you. It does collect your email so that I can send you the resource that I've developed specifically for you. But I do classes on Saturdays, and the classes cover things like finances and dealing with your stuff, and preparing your visa submission to eliminate problems. It's more of a global approach, not just for Spain. But I've found that there are so many people wanting to go in so many places, but the commonalities are rich, that you can learn so much from anybody who moves to another country. Doesn't matter what country that is.
And this is
So
the meetup that you organize and facilitate.
that's Clever Expat, and there's a link on the website for the meetup. But if you want to go through Meetup to find me, then look for Future Expats, and that is a page that we have. We have meetings 10 months out of the year. I take July and December off, but those meetups are open to anybody. And like I said, we have over 1,400 people as part of the group. And the meetups are dynamic and a lot of fun.
Yeah, and very, very, very informative.
Good. Thank you.
Christopher, he does a lot of work to pull together information and resources. So definitely really good. And you said you had a freebie.
I
So
do have a
what's the
freebie.
freebie? What if somebody signs
So
up? What do they get?
right. So I have uh, a freebie for everyone here that is basically a checklist of things that you might want to consider about staying healthy as you're traveling or as you become an expat. Just a tip of the iceberg kind of list of categories that can help you be safer and more successful.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So
do you want to
definitely get
post?
that.
Do you want to post that link or?
It's cleverexpat.com.
Cleverexpat.com/courage.
All right.
It's a hidden page, people. It's a secret.
cleverexpats.com/courage. Hopefully I got it right.
Yes, perfect.
All right. So that's that. So definitely take advantage of that. And I want to just wrap up by thanking everybody who joined us live for your questions. Anybody who's watching the replay, definitely, if you enjoyed this, give it a like, share it with your friends. I want to share that if you are somebody who is looking to make a move abroad, I help women who are ready to start the next chapter of their lives and who have been longing to get to their dream country for a long time, but who have not been able to manage to do it on their own. And for whatever reason, they have stalled. And they've had a 5-year plan for the last 15 years and still haven't made it abroad. I help women to move through their fear and self-doubt, whatever is holding them back from being in a country where they feel like they're more alive and more able to be themselves, be their authentic selves, and enjoy a slower pace of life and really revel in that. I help them to do that. And I have a program called the Carefree Expat Incubator. So if that sounds like you, if that is something that you feel like would help you, be sure to click the link in the description. It is the Courage Catalyst /future expat. And that will take you to my calendar page where we can have a conversation to understand where you are, where you want to go, what's holding you back, and if our working together could help you move through that lull that you're in and get you to living and thriving in the place you were meant to be. All right. So be sure to do that. Go ahead.
I also want to point out that next month, there's a good chance that we're going to be collaborating again over on my side of the house with my meetup. So stay tuned for that. There will be announcements.
Yes. And so we're going to be collaborating again with that. I can't do two things at one time. Hold on. All right. And so I just dropped the link to my calendar in the description. Yes, next month, January, for the January meetup, I'm going to be a special guest.
And
And I
that's on the
forgot what we're
second
going to talk
Saturday of the
about.
month. Yeah.
But it's going to be good. If you enjoyed this, definitely tune in to that. Oh, that didn't go through. Let me get this.
It did for me.
It did? Okay. So an error
Yeah.
occurred. Wait a moment, then try again. So you got it?
Yes. And KO, thank you very much. You can tell we both have a little bit of passion behind all this. This is what we like to do, is encourage others to do some of the things that we've been fortunate enough to do.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So that wraps up this live. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And thank you, everybody. We will hope to see you next month in Christopher's meetup, Future Expat Meetup.
Great.
All right. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.